Welcome to the session on answering the Mike's Restaurant questions from the Mike's Restaurant case study. So I'm going to step through the questions that were posed in the case, and I'm going to answer them on my Excel spreadsheet as we proceed. The data that you see in front of you at the moment is the information given from Exhibit 2 in the case study. And if you recall, this is the data where all the variable costs are neatly put together and all the fixed costs are put together. So let's bring in here the questions that were in the case, and question 1 says, determine the sales figure which the firm reached break-even point in the current year. Alright, so let's go and do over here question 1, and we want to do a break-even calculation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the rules that I have taught you along the way, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a grid. Sales less the cost of sales gives us a gross profit, less the expenses gives us a profit before tax. Right? And I'm simply, for now, going to take the data that's given in the question and I'm going to put it into my grid. So this will obviously be sales minus cost of sales. Should match that number there. That's good news. The expenses are 160,404, and therefore my profit before tax will be the gross profit minus the expenses. Alright, so I've taken the full income statement and I've consolidated that into my grid. Now I want to find out some information about this, and the first thing I want to find out is I want to calculate here what is the gross profit of the business under its current operating conditions. To do that, we take the gross profit and we divide it by the sales number, and that gives us 38.7%. Let's turn that into a percentage and add a decimal place, and there we have 38.7% as our GP. Okay, and the question was asking us, what is the break-even in sales? So I'm simply going to do this. I'm going to say, let's take that information, paste it here. We are trying to calculate a profit before tax equal to 0. We know that the fixed expenses are 160,000. We know at the point of break-even that this gross profit and these fixed expenses are the same. We have learned here that this profit margin is the same, or is 38.7%. So now I've put into my break-even calculation some critical information. The profit margin from the business, and we know at the point of break-even these two are going to be the same. Now I can calculate the sales required to break even by taking the gross profit, dividing it by my margin, and getting a sales number of 414,000 and some change. And then let's calculate a cost of sales by saying sales minus gross profit, and we will have a cost of sales number, and that's just for completion purposes. Now we have calculated. That's the break-even required for this business. Question 1, part 1, answered. Let's do question 1, part 2. And question 1, part 2 was asking us to calculate the break-even in the following year. or in the coming year, I think is the language that they used. Now we cannot calculate that until we know what the new fixed costs are going to be and what the new profit margin will be for the business. So we need to do some forecasting, and in order to forecast we have to go and get some information from the case, and the information we need from the case is this information in the second last paragraph, and specifically we see here that the labor costs would probably rise by 10%. Okay, so let's go and do that first. Labor costs, there we are, equals last year multiplied by 1.1. That has the effect of increasing that by 10%. Now there's labor cost that's part of the variable expenses and labor costs that are part of the fixed expenses. So there we are, we have increased the labor costs. Next thing we have to do is, second, the cost of raw materials, food costs, would increase by 20%. Okay, so there's our food cost. This is equal to that times 1.2. There's the 20% increase in the food cost. Okay, making progress here. And the third part was, finally, all other costs, including payroll taxes, except depreciation and interest expenses, were expected to grow on average by 10%. All right. All other costs except depreciation, let's just mark that in yellow, and interest expenses. Is that correct? I need to remind myself here. Depreciation and interest expenses. There we go. Everything else is going to go up by 10%. Great, well that's easy enough. Let's start here. We don't need to go and do every single one. Let's just do one of them, multiply by 1.1, and we can copy that, Control C, Control D, copy that down. Those have all gone up by 10%. This one here, we already did that calculation, that's gone up by 10%. Let's do this, Shift down arrow, tell Excel to Control D, let's copy down, and then with the exception of these two, make them equal to last year. There we have increased everything by 10%. Here's a neat little Excel trick. Come to the bottom of a list, go Alt equals, and Excel will sum the total of that list for you. Now you can take that and you can move it there, and we have a sum of the expenses for last year, or for our forecasted year. We can do the same here, Alt equals, starting to get a forecast going here. And for now we're going to say, well, the sales is going to be the same as last year. So what's our GP going to be? Sales minus variable costs. Variable costs, gross profit minus fixed costs, and it looks like this business is going to make a loss. So let's just think about what's happened here. For the purpose of our forecast, as a starting point, we're for now just going to say that the sales has remained unchanged. But because it's a year later, our expenses have gone up, and you can see how the variable costs have gone up, and therefore our GP has gone down. And our fixed costs have gone up. And as a result, our profit is going to be negative. In other words, if we sell the same as last year and all our expenses go up, this is not going to look good for the profitability of the business. Now what I want to determine is, what is my new profit margin here? So the way I'm going to do that is as follows. I'm going to copy my grid, I'm going to put it in over here, Control C, Control V. I am trying to calculate a break even for the coming year, so I can put that in there. My new expenses for the coming year is the 174,516. We know at break even the gross profit and the fixed expenses will be the same. And now what we're looking for is a gross profit margin for this business based on this scenario. So we're going to go and say the gross profit divided by the sales, and we're going to get a percentage here. Alt HP will give us a percentage, and we can add a decimal point. And what you will notice is our profit margin has naturally come down because all our costs have gone up. So now we can calculate the break-even sales, GP divided by margin. You guys are familiar with that by now. And now we have the break-even sales number in the coming year, or in our forecasted year. For completion, let's take sales minus GP, and that will give us our cost of sales. And now you can clearly see that where last year that was our sales number, our new sales number to break even is going to be higher than our sales number for last year. And that makes sense because we will make a loss if we do the same sales as last year. So we have answered question number 1 of Mike's Restaurant. I'm going to end this video here, and question 2 will be in the next video.